welcome to the DGD Podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds, Juan, and Kobe are not here. So it's just Rob, not the gang, just Rob for today. Listen, before we even get started, though, let's talk about our sponsor. Show is brought to you by Apotheos Roastery. Listen, some of the best coffee you'll ever drink in your life. I'll vouch for it. First off, if you want to try it out, go to dgdpodcast.com/apotheos. Use that link, and 20% of every bag that you purchase 20% of that will go to the Classic City Collective because Apotheos is the official coffee and cold brew partner of the Classic City Collective. So check them out. Follow them. Instagram is Apotheos Roastery and Twitter Apotheos Coffee. Go give them a follow. Tell them DGD sent you. Get you some coffee. You won't regret it. I promise. Just gonna leave that there. You won't regret it. Talking wide receivers today, folks. Talking wide receivers. Listen, I think the main thing here for me, right, so far this spring practice, 3 practices in, you lose A.D. Mitchell to Texas, right? I think that kind of opened up, and then Kearis Jackson to the draft, right? So you lose a lot of production there. You do have a lot of guys coming back, but how does Georgia utilize the talent that we have in the receiving corps moving forward, right? Obviously, you bring in transfers. RaRa Thomas from Mississippi State, Dominic Lovett from Missouri, and you have a recipe for one of the deepest rooms in the country. It's just that simple. You do. Arguably the best room in the best receiving core in the country. I've heard people can argue about that, and I'm not wrong. I've heard it, and I think there's a good argument about that. Now we're just talking strictly receivers, right? We're not bringing the tight ends into this. But receiving core, there's a lot of depth, and whether you want to hear it or not, we'll explain that a little bit later. But let's bring in some roll call here. Oh, we got JOGG bringing in the Go Dogs. Amy, get well soon. Yes, absolutely. ER visit yesterday, so get well. Hope everything's going well, Amy. And I think with that note right there, also in the brigade, if you have any questions, drop them. Because if you do, we'll take those questions in the meantime. We will take that in the meantime. But first things first, what does the loss of A.D. Mitchell do to the receiving corps? Well, first, I think I don't want to reiterate a lot of this, but I think it's worth it. You have a true X receiver. And now you didn't have one. Now, this is prior to, so keep in mind. So you lose that X receiver. That's important. That's very important, right? You need that kind of guy. Well, look no further. You bring in, right before that, it's ironic that you bring in RaRa Thomas because I think what's going to happen is he will be the guy. But you also have another guy that could step up in Marcus Jackson and play that X receiver, potentially. And you bring in Tyler Williams from the recruiting cycle, 23 class, and you sit there and you figure out what's going to happen from there. So, from my thoughts and observations, I think you look at RaRa Thomas as being the guy. Now, you're going to rotate Marcus Jackson in there. I think he's worthy of it, of rotating in for playing time. But when you're in that situation where you need – right, you need a third and medium, and you need to convert and extend the drive. Which one's going to get their number called? That's the question. I think it's RaRa Thomas. I just think that he's been more. I ain't gonna say more proven, but I think you have a better shot. And that's not a knock to Marcus Jackson because we saw Marcus Jackson do some impressive things last season as well. Right, A.D. Mitchell went down. I felt like Marcus Rosemary stepped up well, especially perimeter blocking. Tennessee game had a nasty two-toe drag touchdown against Tennessee. So we know he can do these things. But if you brought in the guys like you did in Lovett and Thomas, I would expect RaRa Thomas to get that run there. That's just my thoughts. But I do think you're going to see both. There's no reason not to. Right? And what if you want to put them on both sides? I think you could. Whether you do a 3x1 set or whatever you're going to call it. I think the question would be who's the one if you did the 3x1. But I think both guys are going to play. I don't think that's a question. Um, excuse me. When you have the depth that Georgia has, this is a good problem to have. But at the same time, if Juan was here, he'd tell you, the rotation is your sometimes your worst nightmare as an offense sometimes. But you have that kind of depth. I think you have to utilize it, and I think you're going to see both guys get heavy run, and I'm on board for that because I like what they can do. But you don't want to become too predictable, right? We know what Marcus Jackson is capable of, but what does that mean? What does that mean with RaRa Thomas? Mississippi State doesn't necessarily predicate to the run like Georgia does. So what does that mean, right? Can he block on the perimeter like we need him to? I think that's the question, and we're about to find out in spring practice. And now that they're full pads, of course, we're about to find out. There's no question about it. I do think though that both guys are going to have an impact this season. There's no doubt about that. Regardless of the quarterback, whoever starts, which I'm thinking Carson Beck. What does that mean for right? What does that mean for them? Right. I think you've got a pocket quarterback if Beck is the starter. You're going to have a pocket passing type quarterback that can get the ball down the field. And I think the fact that Carson Beck can make all the NFL throws, any kind of throw that you really need him to make, I think you could see Georgia relegate to more passes. Um, Obviously, with Bobo being an offensive coordinator, it's going to be interesting to see, which is why I think G Day is going to be so important this season. New quarterback with a competition. I feel like a legitimate competition going on, and new offensive coordinator. What is Bobo going? Is he going to mix it up? Is he going to bring in certain things? Is he going to keep what Munkin did? Right? We don't know. All we can do is speculate. But I expect this is why I think G Day will be probably one of the most important G Days we've seen in recent memory, especially coming off two titles on the verge of a three-peat. What will that look like? What will it look like? And I think that's one of the bigger questions there. We talked about the X receiver, right? But obviously, probably the most tried and true of the group is Lad McConkey. You're going to keep Lad McConkey on the field. You have to. There's no question about it. Kid's too good. Um, but you also have guys like Dominic Lovett right there that transferred in. Yeah, you got Dominic Lovett. Obviously, I think you got guys like Dylan Bell and Denylon Morissette, right? See how they get rotated in. But I think you'll find a way for guys like Dominic and Lad McConkey to be on the field at the same time. I just think that's what you got to do. There's too much talent there. Again, it alludes back to the depth that we have. As Kobe chimes in saying, the most important G Day than 2019 would have been had Field stayed. Yeah, I think that would have been interesting. I still have nightmares about that Coley situation. I just don't know if he would have fit right. But we had Jake Fromm, and Jake Fromm did not fit Coley, in my opinion. That was rough. Joe Huff says this receiver room is the best we've had in a while. Can't wait to see them ball. Oh, no doubt. I think everyone is, right? I think everyone's excited. Like I said, I'm not going to bring up the tight end situation, but, what if you go empty, right? Like there's a potential you could see more empty sets due to the fact that you've got wide receivers everywhere and can play all types of, right? You can play it all different types and have a trips on one side, twins on the other, or you can have at a line. I mean, you have a tight end and run twins on the outsides, right? Duo twins, whatever. You could do it. Right? So I mean, I'm expecting Dominic Lovett. Oh, in my opinion, I'm expecting Dominic Lovett to have a tremendous season. I just think the kid is good. I mean, just out of the slot, I think that is something that we can definitely use to our advantage. I just don't see an issue with creating separation because what he did against us is enough. That's just what he did against us is enough to merit. And then RaRa the same way. RaRa was the same way. It was ironic that we have guys that kind of cook us, if you will. And Kirby's like, hey, come play for a national title. Come on. And they're like, all right, bet, let's go. Just makes sense, right? It's just my preference there. But no, I think looking at Joe Huff, you're not wrong. Just from top to bottom. I mean, we'll kind of take a breakdown here, but I mean, if you've got, like I said, you've got A.D. Mitchell gone, right? Which that was a big loss. But when you have guys like Dominic and RaRa, Marcus Roseman-Jackson, you've got Ladd, you've got Arian Smith, which we're about to start talking speed here in a little bit, but you got Anthony Evans, you've got Dylan Bell, Denylon Morissette, Yazid Haynes. Yeah, all of them could run. Who knows what we're going to see, right? That's why I'm curious to see what Bobo is going to do, from a play calling perspective, right? Because, if we're trying to go back in time, per se, Bobo, I don't think had that kind of talent at receiver, and he ain't had that talent at tight end. Yeah, I mean, quarterback talent, I think you could say he's had a good quarterback talent for what it's worth, and running backs were good, but you have that much receiving talent. What are we going to see with quarterbacks that could all throw to parts of the field comfortably, that scares the bejesus out of a defense? I'm excited to see what that means. That's all I'm going to say. Which, speaking of hitting parts of the field, Arian Smith, how are you going to put him on the field, right? You know he's going to play, but when you've got world-class speed like that, I think that's the telling point for me. Everybody knows by now that 20 or that 20, the 76, I think it's 76-yard touchdown bomb from Stetson to Arian Smith. All he did was took a little inside step, and it just completely shook that defender. How do you game plan against that when he's on the field? Which ultimately would turn back to, right, personnel sets. If you have Arian Smith on the field, and you've got, say for instance, if you had Arian Smith, Ladd McConkey on one side, then you got Dominic Lovett and RaRa Thomas on the other, right? And say you have Brock Bowers, right? Maybe it lined up off the line in the slot, like in the short, close slot. That's dangerous, folks. Because from a defense, how do you guard that? How do you guard that? You try to blitz six, short route, boom, there you go. Georgia was keen on them tunnel screens, things like that. But at the same time, you bring in say for instance, you just run, say you run three receivers, a tight end, and a running back, stay back to protect back, and then you got Arian Smith streaking, right? You got streaking down the field, down the middle, down the seam. Yeah, then you got Ladd McConkey doing some. It's just scary, folks. It really is, and I'm all on board with that. That's just the way it goes. But I think when you take the speed, right? Everybody knows Arian Smith and the speed of Arian Smith by now. But I don't know if they truly realize just how fast Anthony Evans and Yazid Haynes are coming in as true freshmen. I don't know if I just don't understand if people really get that. Just me. Listen, that's some track speed, both of those guys. So you're adding world-class speed from Arian Smith, and you just added to that speed. So again, think of a situation if you have Anthony Evans and Arian Smith for some reason on the field. How do you guard that? Both safeties are taken up, I would assume. All right, you take up both safeties. You can't put a linebacker on them. You have to put a nickel. But even then, if you put them in there, that could be a decoy for a run, right? Because you guard six, take the safeties out of take the safeties back, right? Put them back for deep help, and just run the ball. All this stuff can open up the run game, and Bobo has been known to run the ball. So, I think Georgia's in a situation where we have so much talent that it's really a blessing because of the fact that what it opens up the offense. Just my thoughts. Joe Huff, with the speed, I'd like to see the end arounds with the with Smith and the boys. CJ Smith should be ready also. Yeah, that's another name I think people need to pay attention to. That's another one. Again, we don't necessarily know what Bobo's going to bring to this offense. The assumption could be a mixture of what we saw from 2007 to 2014, mixed in with some of what Monken has been doing the past 3 years. That's probably an argument that could be, I feel would be safe. Just from play calling, but at the same time we don't know. So maybe you do see those end arounds. Get those guys in space. Use guys like RaRa. Use guys like Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, Brock Bowers on the end perimeter blocking, and get those guys in space and let them work. Just let them work, because I think you can get away with that. That would be very interesting to see. 100%. I want to ask a question for the brigade in here. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments what receiver what receiver will have the best season, and if you want to go into detail, tell me why. Let me know in the comments. Also, while you're at it, if you're watching, make sure to like the video. Just make sure you hit the like button. Just do it. It's free. And it does a lot for the show, by the way, too. But no, I think I want to get back to Arian Smith, because I think one of the things that I saw from Arian Smith, we know his ability on the deep ball, but I think one of my questions for him is, when will we see like a route tree develop? Try to create separation, or do we continue to see that the burner type deep ball, where we just run go routes, things like that? Do we see that? Maybe. Michael B answers the question with Ladd because he's already comfortable in the system. Absolutely. Ladd's always a good pick there. I think Ladd's a safe pick. I think you look at like how defenses go about defending these guys. Do they now that AD's not there, do they focus on trying to double team anyone specifically, right? But I think Georgia has the depth now, Michael, that if they try to double someone, Bobo can definitely get that situation open back up due to the fact that you've got the talent to be able to make them pay for double teaming that, right? Like if you want to double team Brock Bowers, right? Depending on how you make it work, you call a game plan up to where, or call some plays and burn these guys, right? Use Arian Smith's speed to make them pay. If you have a safety on top of Brock Bowers, right? If you're in a one high situation, cook them, right? Cook them with the deep, let them run past the slot nickel, the nickel, or whoever you got guarding them, and be done. Or if you want to double team out wide, say RaRa is having a day, and they start going to double team RaRa. Right now, you got Ladd McConkey, right, being able to create separation, things like that. Again, I think you just have a nightmare for defense trying to guard the talent that Georgia has. It's just the way that goes. But no, I think comfortability in the system is a huge factor there, Michael. So, I think you could see that. I definitely think Ladd's a definite shot to be in that situation in regards to having the best season. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Dominic Lovett, honestly has an excellent season either, right? Just my thought on it. I think you could definitely see that. There's just so many different possibilities, if you will. But that's just my thoughts. Guys, we're going to take a quick break on the right. We'll come right back after a quick break and keep discussing this receiving room. And we are back. Man, I'm like I said, this whole show, I'm excited about the receiving room. But I want to kind of give my thoughts on what Bobo can bring, right? I think when you look at it, I think you're going to see a lot of deep shots. Whether it be, how often we set up the run to predicate a a deep pass. That's to be seen. And let me know, by the way, let me know if you think my take is on par or not. I definitely think you're going to see more deep shots. The fact that whatever quarterback we have, and this is, listen, I'm not knocking Stetson Bennett because we saw what he can do. But I think just a little bit more arm strength. You have a guy like Arian Smith getting hit in stride rather than having to slow down to it, even if he was wide open. Carson Beck, I think, or especially Gunnar Stockton, or all three guys really for that matter, can get the ball into parts of the field comfortably. Like I said, that's the key word, comfortably. It's not that Stetson couldn't get it there, but it's the fact with how easy you made it happen. Because, oh goodness, oh goodness, Bishop Don is in the chat. He has entered the chat, folks. But no, in honesty though, I think, and I'd love to get Juan back on here if he can, to get his opinion as a receiver perspective with all the talent. Juan, if you're listening to this, let me know in the chat, or if you can hop on. Uh, Based off all this talent and your knowledge of Mike Bobo, what do you see this offense looking like from in the passing game? Uh, Maybe you can hop on. If not, that's fine. But Juan's will be playing in the alumni flag football game, and he's trying to get Kobe to play as well. So should be interesting. Let us know the deets on that. By the way, let us know some details. We'll make an announcement of it. We'll do that. But no, ultimately, though, from what it sounds like, guys like Dominic and RaRa have been causing some problems through spring camp so far. It's only 3 practices. I get it. First, like I said, first practice Saturday was in pads, so the first 2 were in helmets only. So we'll see. Okay, so JOWG is going to be the 50-year-old plus cheerleader at the game. Fair enough, I suppose. Let's see. Let me pose a question for the brigade as well. Do you see an impact freshman, pure freshman? Do you see an impact freshman? I think that's going to be interesting to see. I would think a guy like Yazeed Haynes could come in and make an impact. I mean, the crazy thing is you've got speed. Speed Yazeed Haynes. I feel like Yazeed Haynes is a little bit more polished of a route runner, but at the same time, I think you're completely, nitpicking there, just when you have that kind of speed. But Tyler Williams, big-bodied receiver, but he's fast as shit too, and that should be a scary thing as well. So do not let that go to waste either. Michael B says Tyler Williams, but only because he's expecting blowouts where the young guys could get more time. Again, another fold in the whole system, right? Our schedule plays into that situation where a lot of young guys are going to get a lot of playing time, I would expect, right? This rotation is going to come in. Oh, damn. I ain't saying that, but damn. Burned him. Jesus. Colonel One speaks today. But, Michael, to continue here, I do think, running the score up to a point where, say if Carson Beck is your starter, right, you could see, Brock and Gunnar, I think, getting some playing time. I think you could see all 3 guys play and be okay with it. But the question to me lies is, do you see them operating the offense similar to how Carson Beck, when he came in last year, right? When Carson Beck came in last year, Todd Monken allowed him to operate the offense. We saw him go and throw passes. We saw him, going through progressions, looking at the full field reads, things like that. Do we see some of the same if and when that happens this year? I think that's another question, and I think that's a testament to how comfortable Bobo and Kirby feel with those guys operating the system. I think you could see more of Brock doing that, but it also wouldn't surprise me if you saw Gunnar do that. Just my thoughts as well. Kobe says not sure they let anyone play left bench in a flag football game. Oh my God! Hey, they do need everyone needs a long snapper. I'm just gonna leave that there. So, Juan is calling that correctly. Michael says that neither of the three quarterbacks have much game experience, which is 100% accurate. Kirby has learned that we need to run the O with the backups, not taking shots, but run the offense. Yeah, I think that's the key for me. I think I'm with you on that one, Michael. Um, Again, I think you saw it like the last season when Stetson was taken out and Carson Beck came in. We saw that operation, and that's key for development. And I thought that's something that's very important to note because in years past we hadn't seen that. So the fact that you start to see that is very telling to me. It really is important because it does help you get in a situation where your backup, right, is going to be groomed to be the starter potentially, right? Because now you don't. Now is a time when you have no Stetson Bennett to back you up. So if you falter, there's no lifeline in Stetson Bennett like you did in 2021. So you got to get it figured out. And I think we will. I'm not worried about it as much, but I do have concerns, right? I do have concerns if we do play a close game, will the quarterback experience impact the receiving game and will it impact games in general? For the most part, though, I think we're going to get ourselves into situations where we run the score up so much that you'll see Carson, get off the field, and you'll see whoever the backup may be, and maybe even the third string quarterback, depending on the situation, try to keep him happy potentially. Not saying we will, but I definitely think it'll be interesting to see. So it's gonna be simple there, but I do, I would love to see us operate the offense, act like nothing changes, don't just run the ball and just go from there. Rudes is in the building. Said late, not elite, but I got distracted because this Apotheos got me juice this morning. Yeah, dude, Apotheos will get you juice. Um, it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. Only amphetamine for me. No, yeah. Rude's got me caught off guard with that Apotheos talk. I love that stuff, guys. I'm serious. Yeah, if you haven't had it, I would suggest you do it. It's delicious. Um, but no, Rude's were and the GO double G. Damn, everybody having Apotheos today. Um, but no, as we go back to the receiving core, and there's an argument to be made that Georgia has the best receiving core in the country. Let me know, unbiased opinion, in the comments or wherever. Let me know if you think Georgia has the best receiving core in the country. Because there's an argument, in my opinion, to be made. There's an argument to be made. So just because I've heard people that will vouch for that and go to war for it, and I get it. I do. It may not be some of the names. Like I think you look at Texas as an argument for that. Uh, Michael B says the obvious. Ohio State. There you go. But I think from top to bottom, though, as far as depth, I think Georgia has a damn good shot to be one of the best ones, especially when it comes to depth. Um, I think listen, even if Georgia's not the best in the country, it's the best that Georgia's had in a long time, and I don't think there's an argument for that. I don't think there's much of an argument at all. So I definitely think that, well, people can argue that. Fair, I get it. Let's see. Rude says, I think our wide receiver is built like our running back room, not any one specific guy, but specific types of wide receivers they need for the system. Speedsters to stretch the field, yak guys in the middle and on the edges. Yeah, I think like you bring it up into those tiers right there, right? And you have these guys that fit into those categories, right? We've talked about the speedsters. We've talked about the yak guys. I think you look at yak guys this year, going to be Lad McConkey. I think you're going to see Dylan Bell have take a huge step up. I'm expecting him to have a nice season. Dylan Bell, if you're not familiar, Dylan Bell was a recipient of Carson Beck, and they had some good chemistry leading into when they played on the field last season. So I would expect that to continue. Let's see. Running back rooms always had Thunder and Lightning, and Gurley and Chubb. Yeah, exactly. Cooks and Sony. Oh, no doubt. I mean, Chubb and Dejon. Yeah, there you. So I mean, ultimately, I feel comfortable in a sense saying that you know the receiving room. I am not worried at all. I do think, right. I do think that some of the key questions um, would be right. Who steps up in the and really does the Truex replacement for AD Mitchell? Can you? I don't know if you necessarily replace them as a person, but replicate the production. Um, but with a true X, like when you have your X receiver, you want to make sure that you have that quarterback that feels comfortable throwing it up and let that person come down with it. Right in the 50-50 ball situation, that's who's going to be that guy. Is it going to be a RaRa Thomas? Is it going to be Marcus Sure as me? I don't know, but I mean, hell, it could be Tyler Williams. You never know. But I guarantee you, once they figure it out, we'll know for sure who, because on third down, if they're by themselves, kind of have a feel for it. But the question is at that point, do they throw it to that receiver? I think you should, but here we are. We'll talk about it. So ultimately, I think it would be definitely, definitely something to watch. And again, we talk about G Day less than a month away. It's going to be important, especially from a receiver standpoint. How much rotation? What kind of route trees are we running? Are we running some of the same? Are we doing different things? Right? What kind of personnel sets are we looking at? Um, Dylan Bell is my guy at receiver coming up. Yeah, Roots talking about Dylan Bell again. Kid's got it too. That's just again, it's just a testament to the depth that we talked about, and we're going to reiterate that over and over and over because of the fact that all it takes is for somebody to get hurt, and you have that guy that's quality to step in and take their place. And that's something that George has done in the past few years that have come to a lot of scrutiny. It's came under a lot of scrutiny. But then when you look at situations at other teams, and it just seems to bite people in the ass. Just going to leave that there. When you look at Alabama loses Mechie and JMO. While I'm not going to discredit the fact that it was an impactful loss for both of them, you know, you just don't have the guys making the plays when they need to the most. And, leading into 2021, all the way through the season, you had several guys coming in and making plays, rotating in and out and in and out. And you're getting them run, and you're sitting there, and these guys are comfortable with making plays when they need to. So when it comes in the biggest games, there's no drop off, and I feel like that's important. Like I said, Juan talks about the rotation and over rotation for that matter. But sometimes that over rotation gets guys in and gets them, comfortable in playing situations. So they're not like deer in headlights, right? Juan's the goat for a reason, but at the same time, we don't have Juan Daniels on the 23 team. Sorry, unless he wants to sign up for an extra year. Just gonna leave that there. But yeah, let's see. Right tool for the right specific job. Yeah, I mean, and the interesting thing too is Ruth mentioned that he was a 3-star. Dylan Bell. Yeah, Lad McConkey was the same way. Just I feel like that's important to note too. Right, you're taking BMAC and recruiting these guys. Oh, that is, Rude. You bring up a good point. Football today is too soft for one. He played in a toga. This is true. They don't allow Centurions on the team, says GOWG. Both are valid points. The fact that Juan's not here to defend himself in this makes this even better. Is that bad to say that? Sorry, Juan. Or, as in 100 years old. Yeah, exactly. Let us know in your thoughts. Excuse me. What are your thoughts on the receiving core coming into the season overall? Like I said, overall, I feel I'm loving the situation that we're in. I feel like this is almost like rarefied air for Georgia fans when you have that type of talent and development where you have guys that our 4 stars coming in. We still haven't found that elite 5-star to come in. And to me, that's interesting because if we can get that guy, a la like Adonis is in the building. We're talking about receivers, Adonis. Like if you can get a Jeremiah Smith in the fold, that changes your entire program immediately. Immediately does. Um, that is the guy, right? When you look at the last the guy at receiver, yeah, I mean you could argue Pickens, but I don't feel as comfortable saying it because we didn't have the sample size that you did playing full seasons. I think the last the guy was probably AJ Green. You just haven't had that guy, but you have a bunch of good guys, and that's okay too. Period. Period. Um, yeah. If we have the right trigger man, who knows how good our receivers are? Yeah. These are all excellent questions, and I think things that we have to pay attention to through the spring. Terry G. Terry G. Interesting. Explain, sir. I'm just curious what you're meaning there. Kind of random for me, but I'm probably overlooking something. But no, I think you'll see a lot of right. Like talk about Bobo. Bobo's got the talent that he didn't have in his first stint as offensive coordinator, especially at one time. So again, I'm going to reiterate this again because it bears repeating. G Day should be watched by everybody, and maybe even multiple times. Like I'm going to record it and probably watch it twice or more. Just going to leave that there. I think there's so much that needs to be answered at G Day that it bears looking at multiple times. Everybody's going to do it different. I'm not sure. Rude says, I'm not sure we will ever have that guy anymore under Kirby because at a higher level he recruits specific tools for the job, not a garage full of high maintenance Bugattis. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's another thing, right? I think that poses the question: do you have a guy like that? Probably. I mean, you got a good point. You got a good point. Bringing out the Mustang GT for the drag strip, F350 for the dirty work. Roots mentions. Yeah, I mean, it works. You can't question that anymore. What Kirby's doing is working, right? 2 titles back to back, especially, kind of reiterates that point that apparently what he's doing is working. It takes personnel, it takes coaching staff, a lot of it, but it's working. So, keep that in mind, as we look forward to G Day and everything. But again, I think you're going to see. I really don't know what to expect, which is again, G Day is going to be so crucial to watch because you'll kind of get somewhat of a feel. Obviously, how much you take away from G Day, not 100% by any means, but right, you look at different personnel sets, what kind of personnel sets you see, what kind of, what personnel out there, right? Like how much rotation do you see, ones versus the twos, however you want to look at it. There's so much there. It could really go a plethora of ways, if that makes sense. I'm just excited for it. I really am. Just purely excited for it. Let's see. Ruse asks, how many times have you heard Brooks talk about player overhead versus player production? I mean, it's a lot. A lot. End rent. There you go. That's a good point. I think we'll wrap it up here, guys. With that being said, let's have a great day. I'm going to have a great day. We'll read one more comment. Hold on. Kirby will never let just 1 or 2 players define our team. We have a machine. Yeah, I mean, across the board, yes. But I think, like I said, you're starting to see that at the receiving corps specifically too. You just got so many guys, right? You rotate to get them targets. It's guys that come in, they buy into the winning culture, the winning mentality, right? You can go to Ohio State, you can go to other places and get better stats, right? Go to Texas, get better stats. But you're winning national championships here. So Black Adonis, I got to read a Black Adonis comment. We don't get those guys because we aren't known to throw the ball all over the field. our offense isn't attractive. It works, but it's not. I want to play in that offense. Yeah, I think ultimately, like again, you have to buy into that, right? What's being presented, it's not for everybody, right? And if you have to, if you criticize it, that's probably the one thing to criticize: a lack of the guys, these elite receivers. And again, right, Kirby doesn't care to some degree because he wants you to block. You're asked to block. You'll get your rep, produce, and and ultimately you fit into the system, right? No one's above the system, but you keep making plays, and you look at. I mean, think about it. You look at guys like this past few years, Lad McConkey has just drastically improved, become a staple in the receiving core. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell prior to his transfer to Texas. Now you look at guys. Now you're looking at Marcus Jackson, and obviously with the addition again of Dominic and RaRa, now you've got a plethora of guys fighting for a spot. You can see a war on all these positions, even though they're going to get reps and they're going to get run. They earned it, in my opinion. How do these guys stack up? And again, I think you look at having one of the deepest receiving cores in the country. Pair that with the schedule that we've got, you're going to see a lot of. I would accept a lot of receptions, um, but you're also going to see a lot of blocking, right? When you've got the horses in the stable like you do in the running back room, there's no reason not to let these guys get their touches too. There's only one ball to go around, so ultimately you got to find a way to make everybody happy. Hit the deep shots, right? Give some guys some run, and just go from there. But with that being said, we're gonna wrap this thing up. That'll end it for today. Thanks everyone for watching, tuning in. With that being said, we will catch y'all next episode. Have a great day and go Dogs.